1. Oh boy, where to begin? My husband, a 32-year-old man, and I, a 29-year-old woman, have an older retired couple that moved into the house by us last year. Their backyard faces our side yard, but unfortunately for us, they are always in their backyard. About a month after they moved in, the husband came onto our property and approached my husband while he was mowing. Scared him since he couldn't hear over the mower. He said there were 2 trees that were technically our property, but he wanted to cut down because he didn't like the limbs in his yard. They were both very skinny trees, not full of tons of branches. He wanted us to split the cost of taking them down, which was going to be $1,200 for us. Now, the trees are not a bother to us in any way, shape, or form, and our neighbor presented this as a cosmetic concern, not a safety concern. So my husband very politely told him we didn't have the money for something like that right now, but he is more than welcome to have them cut down and pay for it himself. We thought that was pretty fair. The neighbor approached my husband again 20 minutes later, again wandering onto our property and startling him while in the garage. He wanted to exchange numbers to speak further and send the estimates. My husband humored him and said he'd take a look. They spoke on the phone the next day, where my husband again politely told him we didn't have the money to do anything about the trees, but gave the neighbor permission to do with them as he pleases. He did eventually take down one of the 2 trees. Fast forward to now. This all happened in August of last year. We thought we left things pretty civil. He even texted my husband after the tree conversation about something unrelated. So we had no reason to believe there was any animosity between us until today. My husband was home from work, and we received a certified letter from our neighbor and his wife. They are now claiming that the second tree is dead and our responsibility to dispose of, and that it's at risk of falling on their new $5,000 shed and causing damage, and that they would hold us responsible for that damage. He was super dramatic, using phrases like imminent threat of harm. This tree is a skinny ash tree. I'm not saying it couldn't cause some damage, but it isn't some huge thing threatening to fall over. It seems pretty stable for now. We are also not convinced the tree is actually on our property. Everything has come from Jay, who we no longer trust. So we were very put off by this means of communication. Jay has my husband's number, and could have easily just come and talked to us about this, but he chose not to. We also suspected that this was his way of forcing us to pay for taking down the second tree he didn't like, which was later confirmed. My husband also told Jay previously that we were trying to start a family. Context: we've been struggling with infertility for 2 years and suffered a pregnancy loss. So we're swimming through lots of grief and expensive treatment right now, and have been for a while. And that we've got a lot of expenses that are taking priority right now. So we just felt that Jay was being pretty unneighborly about the whole thing. I decided to go talk to them when I got home from work with my husband. I spent a lot of time preparing what to say so that I wouldn't be too hateful, but would communicate where we stand. We walked around the neighborhood to their front door, intentionally didn't go through their property to do so, and the wife answered. As soon as she opened the door, she told us to come in and out the back to their deck. I started to do so, but then hesitated. Since things weren't super neighborly between us, I didn't really want to go inside their space, so I politely said that we didn't really want to come inside, we would just like to talk. She then said, "Then screw you," and slammed the door in my face. I was in complete shock. My husband was livid and pounded on the door, demanding to speak with them. She yelled that if we wanted to talk, we have to go out back. So we did. When I got around back, I confronted her about her behavior and she immediately tore into me. I barely got anything out that I wanted to say because she kept cussing me out and insulting us. Jay just sat there and let her berate us and insulted us as well. They told us we didn't belong in the neighborhood and that we were trash, and if we couldn't afford to take care of things like the tree, then we shouldn't own a house. They judged every little aspect of our house and yard. They're the type to obsess over their yard. It's all they do. So apparently ours isn't up to their standard. I told them that we had recently lost a baby and that my priorities were focused on more important things. They didn't care in the slightest, and continue to insult us. I told them to stay off our property from now on and not contact us, if this is how they're going to behave. The wife said, "Oh, screw yourself, bitch." And at that point I decided to walk away. They continued hurling insults at us the whole way back to our house. I've never been treated this way before in my entire life, and I've worked food service, so that's saying something. She called me names I have never heard people use as insults before. It was insanely unhinged, and she was absolutely belligerent the entire time. Now we feel super uncomfortable being outside on our own property, because they're always there. These people are in their mid to late 60s and behaving like... I don't even know what. We want to be responsible, so we're working on confirmation as to whether or not the tree is really ours, and then we'll figure out what we're able to do from there financially. But now we also want a privacy fence to block their view of us and our property. But that's also money we don't have right now. The whole thing is a disaster, and I just needed to vent about how horrid these people are. Helpful advice is also welcome. Hellfreezer's note. I can give you good advice for this one. Firstly, determine if the tree remaining is still alive. If it is, you can take cuttings from the tree and use those cuttings to propagate fresh trees, which you then plant along your property line. And over the years it will shoot up, they will basically give you a living fence, and your neighbors can go screw themselves. 2. I moved into a house by myself about 5 years ago, and mostly kept to myself. However, there was a dying tree on the property line between mine and my neighbor's house that I wanted to get removed because it would drop branches on my roof whenever there was a decent wind and was threatening to fall over completely onto my house. So this required me to get in contact with those neighbors to inform them of my intention to get the tree removed and ask for their permission, since the crew would need to be in their yard too. I only spoke to the wife at this time, and she's decent and still is. The husband is more reclusive, and I'd only seen him around but never spoke with him. The wife and I exchanged phone numbers so I could keep her informed on when the tree crew was coming. Fast forward like 6 months after the tree was long gone. I got a text from an unknown number that's just a smiley face. I delete it, assuming it's some spam call. But then the next day I get another text from that number that's just my name. Now I start to panic. I respond asking who this was, and the response was just another smiley face. Creeped out even harder. Finally, they texted that they were my neighbor's husband. Okay, but he wasn't the one I gave my number to, so he had it without permission. I asked him what he wanted, and he started trying to chat me up like we were old friends. This was the first time I had ever communicated with him. I told him I didn't want to talk to him, and that he didn't have permission to have my number. He was silent for a month or so, but then started texting me again just to chat. I again told him to leave me alone and to stop texting me. The texting did eventually stop for about a year, so I thought he'd finally given up. But then last year he started leaving gifts on my porch, mostly just random sticks but arranged in a way that they were obviously placed there, like he was some squirrel making a summoning circle. He's learned my work schedule, and I don't think he works or even drives, since he's home all day every day. And he leaves his gifts when he knows I'll be at work and therefore can't confront him about it without going over to his house, which I absolutely do not want to do. I set up a camera after the first few times because I deeply suspected it was him, but just wanted photographic proof. Now that it's spring, the gifts this year have evolved into flower cuttings from his lawn, which he otherwise does not maintain, and it's become a fire hazard. Again, he leaves them while I'm at work, so I don't have the opportunity to tell him to stop without initiating a conversation myself. And I absolutely know he will interpret me initiating contact as proof that I want a relationship with him, regardless of what I say. So, he so far hasn't done anything aggressive or destructive or outwardly threatening, but he has pushed and ignored boundaries that have been repeatedly set since day one. He says he's doing it for me because he wants to be my friend, but is completely deaf to my actual wishes and continues to just do whatever makes him feel like he's winning me over. He and his wife seem to have had a falling out within the past few years, since I never see them doing anything together anymore, and they're always out and about separately. I think they just continue to share the house for financial reasons, but keep separate. So if she doesn't want anything to do with him anymore either, I'm hesitant to reach out to her about it, because I don't want to force him to be her problem again if she already cut herself off from him, but is forced to share a living space. The good news is that I think their house is under foreclosure and they'll be moving out within the next couple of months. I feel bad for the wife and her daughter since they're fine, but if it means I'll be rid of my creepy stalker, I'll take it. I just hope he doesn't become increasingly desperate for someone to take him in the closer he gets to moving day. Hellfreezer's note. Well, I'm glad to hear the situation might be ending for you soon, but really I think you do have to reach out to the wife, at least for the sake of letting her know that he's indulging in this sort of erratic and concerning behavior. Go at it from that point of view, just to make her aware of what's happening. She does share a house with the man, after all. It's a good thing you're recording his visits to your house, because you might have to go to the police one day, and I wonder if it would be worthwhile just to call the non-emergency line. Just ask if you could speak to someone for a few moments about what's going on, essentially just so they will have a record that it has been happening, so if they have to look back over it, they can see there's a history there already. It doesn't sound super severe at the moment, but things with stalkers, they can start gentle, and you try to be nice and polite. It can get bad very quickly. I'm very fortunate that the people in my life who seemed a little too obsessed with me were very, very far away, and it wasn't easy for them to get to me. But whatever does happen, good luck with it, and I hope you'll be free of them soon. 3. I have lived in my building for over a decade. It was always peaceful, and all of the neighbors got along. We had a nice mix of ages and backgrounds, and we all just worked. Being that I live in a big city, people came and went in certain apartments, but they were all generally likable. Then the lady who was across the hall finally left over my building management company, tormenting her over her rent-controlled apartment that she had lived in since the 1970s. Her rent was $800 when the going rate was 4 times that. Because of laws in the city, my management company could only raise the rent to a maximum amount, and it would still be on rent control. They renovated it to get it to the max amount. I went in before it was rented out. It was beautiful, and unlike any other apartment in the building, they had things no one else did, including a beautiful new wood floor. The nice apartments are earmarked for friends of the family that owns the building, or the management company, as all of the rent-controlled apartments end. So who moved in? This conventionally odd-looking couple that looked like an unhealthy man with poor hygiene and a frazzled-haired, crazy cat lady. They were friends with a high-level executive of the management company. A rich married couple from Greenwich, Connecticut, took the affordable apartment. But soon I would wonder how they had any friends at all. I didn't like her right away. I know her backstory because she introduced herself to me. As I know, the apartment is tiny, but we have a big house on the lake in Connecticut. This is just our second place because my husband is a doctor and needs to live by his job. She wanted to make it clear that she was better than this small space. Then it only took 5 days before I knew too much about them. I call her the Screech because the woman screeches when she screams at her husband on a near constant basis. Her voice carries like no other. It's always like she's in the room with you. Once my neighbor that lives next door to the elevator was out in the hallway, worried because she could hear them in her apartment. She's so far away. She thought it was a case of domestic violence, and she was in a panic. He had lung cancer, and she screamed at him to drop dead dozens of times a day. I was lucky that I didn't have dysfunctional parents growing up, but here as an adult, I was pulled into their toxic relationship because I can hear every word in my separate apartment because she's just that loud. I know the size of her husband's penis. I know the last time they had sex. I know his gambling problems, how they can't afford the apartment, how he cheated on her with his nurse. He left her once and cleared out her bank account and fled the country. And how she forgave him. I know how he ruined her life and her dreams. Every neighbor knows her entire life. because we talk about how everyone in our side of the hallway can hear her inside of their home. The smallest things set her off. Once he hung her painting slightly askew, which resulted in a 7-hour scream fest and throwing things because he disrespected her art. They also have this dog. It attacked my neighbor's service dog. It made it blind in one eye. The manager never did anything because they were friends with the nightmare couple. The dog tries to eat my dog every time I come out. It lunges at every dog in the building. The super can't even enter their apartment. It even tried to attack a baby. They refuse to put a muzzle on it because it's too much effort. She must be a terrible cook. She burns her food all of the time. Being across the hall, my apartment fills with the smell of burnt meat weekly. They have a self-closing door for fire. It slams on its own, but they push it as hard to close it every time. Sometimes there would be loud bangs as they constantly walk in and out screaming at each other for 30 minutes straight. They close it so loudly things in my apartment shake. They will stand in the hallway screaming at each other and they will throw furniture. They are the most obnoxious, socially ungraceful people I have ever come across. For a woman who was so concerned about saving face the moment we first met, it's amazing that she doesn't feel embarrassed. I went on vacation a month ago. I asked a friend to watch my dog. He told me he just finished school, so I thought he would be around. I didn't know he got a job. He left my dog alone from 8 to 5. It wasn't a big deal. I felt sorry for my dog, but he only told me his schedule once I got on the plane. So for 5 days my dog barked because he doesn't like being alone. The screech had the nerve to leave a note on my door that my dog was disturbing her peace. 4. I moved here 2 years ago. Haven't been able to sit and relax in my yard for one time. It's always children screaming hysterically at the top of their lungs, very loud music and adults yelling. Talking to them won't help. They are really stupid and can't be reasoned with, because they can't for the life of them see other perspectives. So now every time they sit in the backyard, I have circus music on repeat. They're too stupid to realize the effect it has on them. At first they laughed, but after the 8th time on repeat they start to make loud comments, how it doesn't get to them. Now their visitors always leave. Screw these people. Some additional context. They talk behind my back in their backyard like we don't live next to each other. And I mean screaming, not having fun. The children have personality disorders because they're hyper all the time. I know because they're loud and everything. They destroyed parts of my home and threatened me with death. Every major holiday is about them. We tried to have dinner around dinner time on Christmas, but the windows were shaking from the base. During the week, they sit in their backyard and sing loudly at 2 a.m. I guess I'm a little bitch for wanting to sleep because I have to work. Children screaming at midnight because they are playing. How normal people yell is how they speak. They told me that they have been living here for 10 years and every person that lived here before me has complained about their behavior. But it's not them, it's the people that live here. They abuse their dog. One time they left the poor doggy in an empty pool when it was 30 plus Celsius. Their dog is always left in the backyard crying. Called the authorities multiple times, but no one is willing to do anything. They mentally abuse their children, which is really depressing, especially since they're loud and I hear everything. I tried to reason with them for almost 2 years now. I waited for almost 2 years for them to behave like normal people who are considerate of their surroundings. But yeah, I've been called an insufferable little bitch for feeling that way. 5. Please be aware the following story does contain references to animal cruelty, specifically horse beatings. I don't do stories like this often, but it was an interesting enough story to include in this collection. About 6 years ago, my family bought a place in rural Indiana, just outside of town. We bought it for the machine shop, a huge industrial building with zoning, power, and access for trucks. I had been a professional metalsmith for about 10 years, but had to leave that work behind for financial reasons, and the cost of proper space where I live. This new place was on 5 acres with a house, barn, and a creek in the back. It was bordered by a neighbor with an extensive garden and orchard on one side and an empty field on the other. 2 years after we moved in, the field sold. The new owner stored trucks and building supplies there for 2 years before starting on a house. It took them quite a while to build it. They were building it themselves. They seemed decent enough at the time. Now I am used to being viewed as a nuisance. I run a blacksmith and welding shop. I try to mitigate the noise. The building is insulated and machinery anchored to huge and expensive concrete footings that reduce vibration. I don't crank the stereo to drown out the machines. I have headphones. I do regular noise audits and keep reasonable hours, nothing before 7 or after 9, and no weekend work. When the new Neighbours began nearing completion, they brought goats out and stuffed them into a chicken coop about midway down our driveway. They would come out and check on the goats every few days, but sometimes the animals would go a while without anyone coming by. My wife and I would walk the dogs past a few times a day. It's our driveway. And a few days of goats screaming at us, one of us would go over and give them food and water. This was an every other week kind of thing. I figured these folks were probably really busy and just getting hung up on driving the 45+ minutes to feed the animals. Not a big deal, really. As they began moving in, they built a fence, or rather, they had a drunk uncle build a fence. It was just a foot or 2 or 3 from my driveway. And as it meandered toward my house, veered into my carport. I tried to have a conversation with them about this and was threatened with a lawsuit, my first altercation with them. I approached the county only to be told that it would be a civil dispute, and I would have to go through an attorney to get anything done. Now, the drunk uncle realized he was off the line when he got to the carport and just stopped. For 8 months, they did nothing. Well, they did start collecting animals: 6 more goats, 16 sheep, 2, then 4 horses, and 4 cows. All of these tied to posts in chicken wire fences. I did call animal control. Animal control informed me that this county is rural and they can have whatever animals they want and do to them whatever they want. Damn, Indiana, just... what? This was about the time he decided to start training the horses. This involved tying them to a post in front of my porch, blasting mariachi music, while whipping the horse for about 2 hours straight. They lost 3 horses and got 5 more. The half-built fence blew over into our driveway last spring. I was out of town working, and my wife took the dogs out and took some pictures of the fence in our driveway. The neighbor called the police and reported that she was stalking them and taking pictures of their workers, who were eating lunch at the time, apparently, but ran off when they realized they had been seen. The police were not thrilled with the call and gave the neighbor a bit of a talking to. The following week, they pulled the fence and rebuilt it straight. It now fully encloses their property and is not interfering with my carport. Now, I don't trust these idiots, but hoped this was the end. Far from it. They cover their property with floodlights that are motion activated. We no longer have dark nights. In the fall, they began building a 7,000 by 8,000 square foot barn right next to my front porch. Now, at least the horses have a decent place, right? They brought in a full-time horse trainer and are raftering the horses. The new barn comes with a sound system, and the horse beating is now an 8 a.m. to midnight 7-day-a-week affair. When the horses get unmanageable, they train them out. I have no count on the animals anymore, but at least I don't have to watch the beatings anymore. 4 times now he has charged me while on horseback while I was walking the dogs. I figured they had no control the first 3 times, but the last time he looked me in the eye and spurred the horse directly at me. Starting in late January, the manure began. They have 7 acres. They pile the manure right by my porch. I messaged her. She blocked me. I emailed both of them. From February to April, they just piled it higher. In May, I called the health department. Damn, Indiana. On the books, the pile shouldn't be within 200 feet of a residence. The inspector said horse manure doesn't count. They responded. The inspection got them riled up. Apparently, I am the problem for wanting the poop piled on the side of the barn that is not right by my front door and dining room window. My second conversation with them in 2 years was 2 weeks ago, and now they are going out of their way to pile it closer to my house. I haven't complained about the noise or called zoning on them for the unapproved event space they are building, or mentioned any dozens of other obnoxious things they do. I'm concerned that they seem to only want to escalate things. From the conversation, it sounds like they are getting flack from the other neighbors and thinking it's me. I'm not sure they realize that there are houses all around them. She rescued a cat that belongs to one of the other neighbors, which makes me think she hasn't talked to any of them. And she kept going on about us calling the police, which I never have. I can hear the mariachi music, literally night and day, echoing through my house and in the shop, built for noise abatement, with doors closed and machines running. I'm fairly certain that is not going over well with some of the neighbors. Hellfreezer's note. You've been made to feel uncomfortable in your own home. You're being too nice. If you're going to get the blame for doing things anyway, you may as well just go all out. Call anyone you can reasonably call. If it's within your means to do so, maybe get a lawyer, deal with it that way. Talk to your other neighbors, find out what problems they're having. Maybe you want to, team up to deal with them. Through legal means, of course. Either way, I wish you luck with it. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours, Episode 1. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And before you go, please do hit that like button and share the video with friends and family members. And of course, if you'd like early access to these and all the videos, you can get that by supporting me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. Support me there for as little as $1 or more a month. Now go, quickly, before the videos... Well, nothing really. I upload them there for you to watch early. Put them up on the Monday. You'll also find a link in the description to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. And you'll also find a link there to the Hellfreezer Discord if you care to join us over there. We have a good bunch of people over there. If people are poopy heads, they don't last long. And the ones that I'm patient with, I eventually run out of patience with if they don't change their ways. I run a tight ship, and am perhaps a little less tolerant of fools than I used to be. I had a point there. Who knows what it might have been. Anyway, let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, do you have a favorite juice? And do you think they actually make a difference to your health? Well, I know they do, because I should eat more fruit and veg. I like them. It's just laziness in preparing them. Although I'm being a good boy this week, I have bought things. When your body's telling you we don't feel good because you're not giving us good stuff, you have to go, all right, fine, body, I'll buy you the good stuff. But you're gonna have to cook it. I'm not gonna do it. So it's a win-win scenario. Anyway, my favorite juice right now is apple, ginger, and lemon. It's very, very nice. I get it from my local Lidl, although I'm sure other stores have similar things, which is good because they stopped selling the smoothies I liked out there. Although I'm just going to buy green stuff. I've got spinach in the freezer, some other things I need to pick up. Oh, I'll need to get some apples. I might just get a bag of frozen apples because it reduces waste. To start making my smoothies again. I'm more inclined to make smoothies in hotter weather as we move more into the warmer weather where we are right now. It's nice and it's warm and comfortable, I find. So why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below, because I have rambled on a bit here. And before we go, we'll have the answer of the day from a previous video. And as this is the first of the Naughty Neighbours series, we will take this answer from Koahu 114. And this was in relation to very popular foodstuffs that have been around for a while, they're everywhere, and you only just tried. And today's answer comes from Deeper Things. I was in my late 50s before I ever tried any alcoholic drinks, and I found several I enjoyed. A year later I was put on a medication that is dangerous with alcohol, so back to my teetotaling ways I went. I am not expected to ever be free of this medication again. Oh well. But at least you still have the opportunity to try many, many other new things that are not alcohol related. And I hope while you're dealing with restrictions now, you take it as an opportunity to explore a whole world of new cuisines perhaps you've never tried. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.